Thank you, Harry. Let me get my screen up. Hopefully we can all see the presentation. Good. We in the technology committee always joke that we can do seemingly anything with technology except video conference or share a file. So I'm glad we made it that far, and thank you, Harry, for the invitation to speak to you today. It's always wonderful to speak on this topic, always even more wonderful to speak with my friends at Procon. I think you'll hear in our respective presentations that I interact with technology in the broader picture of capital programs management and the entire project lifecycle. I really bring the practitioner aspect for it, whereas Procon lives in the details and really the last mile of technology implementation. So I'm glad we're going in this order because I like to say something and then Procon will always say it better than me. So, and I think we'll hopefully you'll hear that a lot of the themes that Harry brought up will be reinforced in our presentations. So moving along. Just to give a little background of my career trend progression and my interactions with technology controls PMIS. My degree is in civil engineering, structural engineering, and I started with the large general contractor Kiewit, doing really large infrastructure projects across the Western US. You see a power plant, a highway there. From there, I went more to owner side program project management consulting with McDonough Beaulieu Peck on the East Coast, with Cotter Consulting in the Midwest, and now Ausonio on the West Coast. So I've touched a lot of states, and I've seen the way that project management is similar and differs across the country. The roles I've had throughout these stops include project management, program management, both in the field, actually managing and planning the work, all the way to high-level long-term strategic consulting, controls, technology management, in addition, quality and internal process efficiency. And I think there's a lot of interaction between those two. Also a lot of training and development, which is really a key part of successful technology adoption. And then some side gigs. I am a member of the Construction Management Association of America, CMA. I sit in their technology committee. I've co-chaired it for the last number of years. One of the initiatives we did a few years ago was just survey the membership about PMIS usage and ask which systems are you using? And we received on the order of about 30 different firms, which I think speaks to the overload you can have with technology, that it moves at such a rapid pace that it's hard to even know where to begin. So hopefully you'll hear in our presentations just some good rules of thumb that let you make that selection. My day job here is Capital Programs Manager for Cal State Monterey Bay, one of the 23 campuses of the California State University system. It's the largest four-year public institution in the country. We have billions and billions of work across the system. And because of that, they have to operate very efficiently as a public entity with limited resources, limited staffing. Anything in yellow you see is something that is currently planned on our campus. So there's just an unending amount of coordination to make sure that we don't get in each other's way, that projects don't compete with one another, that we use our resources efficiently. And the way we do this is by intelligently using our scheduling, our communication, and our planning. And we have several different PMIS systems that we use both at the local campus and at the university system level. So to set the stage here, why are we talking about this? Why do we bother with technology adoption in the first place? Well, it's because our industry, and this is no big secret, is historically known for being pretty unproductive. We have been slow to change, and that's really hurt the ability to grow and to do more with less. But in spite of that, there continues to be more and more investment in the industry. Nationally, the industry continues to grow at a decent pace. Here in Northern California, it is, I think, Harry, insane is probably the best way to put it, between all of the large public owners, and then we have the tech companies, in addition to the infrastructure, and that's not even to mention the infrastructure funding, which is about to hit the street. So we have more projects, and we have bigger and more complex projects, but we also are well short on people. Depending if you listen to the AGC or the federal government, we are several 100,000 people short in both the craft ranks and in the management ranks. And there's not a company I've spoken to in the last 6 months that hasn't wished they had several good people immediately to fill roles. And so since we can't invent people, how are we going to do more with the people we have? And I think one great option is technology, to not only do more with less, but to take the tasks that are the least enjoyable in our industry and try and automate those so that we can make our industry more appealing by making the work in the industry more exciting to do. So as I mentioned, the industry is very slow to adopt, and KPMG's Global Construction Survey shows that business leaders agree that adoption of technology, according to them, is the second most important success factor. But they also admit that almost 70% of them think they are behind the curve in that technology adoption. So that is both a problem, but it's a huge opportunity too. If these organizations can see a way to get there, can see the way that others have done it, have a roadmap, they have a great potential to make an immediate and impactful upgrade to the way they work. So I like to talk about PMIS within the umbrella of what I call project controls. And Harry mentioned a lot of the PMIS attributes for project management and CQM specifically. I think most, if not all of that, can be lumped into the categories of cost and schedule, which are, the bread and butter of project management, but also in communicating information, and finally, risk management. So to me, the best method to manage all of this in an integrated and transparent fashion is a PMIS. But where do you begin? If you finally decided, you're right, we need to do something, how? Where do we begin? And rather than just a shotgun approach or just going to a vendor and trying it, I think the best way to do it is think about what you want that solution to be. Thinking about what would be the ideal scenario for you and using that to drive a product to try. So what sort of things might you think about in terms of which system could be right for you to try? I think one of the biggest ones is scale. Are you going to have just a one-off project and you need an efficient way to organize information? In that case, you might not even need a PMIS. You just might need a really good file storage and sharing solution. But if you have multiple projects or an ongoing portfolio, or especially something that really needs to have data flow and be coordinated between projects, then I think you're on your way to demonstrating a need for PMIS. How about function? It can be as simple as I just want a place to manage my costs or my invoices, or how do I send an RFI back and forth, or it can be full service, bid documents, design management, field issues, coordination, closeout, payment applications, a living facilities model. Maybe you want the whole Cadillac, right? But I think it's important to figure out what you need and don't need in order to make sure you're paying for only what is important. And next is to think about the people, again, that last mile, like I teased about Procon, is who are your users going to be in the system? Is it just going to be your capital projects department, or are you going to try and span this across your enterprise? And what are the capabilities of that team? What are the resources they can devote to it? Next is data governance. There's always a balance between access and security with data. What is the sophistication of your organization? And what are you trying to achieve with this? A very nimble private tech company can do different things than the federal government. And your solution should reflect that. Next, we have mobility. Are your users just going to sit at a terminal and only need to see it on a large, maybe double monitor, or do they need to do it on their iPad or just talking to their assistant? And then finally, but probably first, if we're being honest, is budget. What can you really afford to invest? What can you make that business case? And I think a good rule of thumb for any tech adoption is how do you treat that as a profitable business entity? How do you justify that ROI? Make sure that you're able to define what success will look like before you even start, so that you have a way of measuring it as you go along. And so you can try something just very streamlined with a small budget, or maybe you're ready for a large scale investment. as you can see, there's really no one size fits all. And so I mentioned there are 30 odd PMIS firms that I can talk about here. They all are surviving because they've all found the right market for themselves. But if you get it right, you're really going to see dividends pay substantially by saving time, better collaboration, simplifying the process, and really making your team's day jobs more enjoyable because they'll be doing less frustrating work. I think one of the most soul-crushing parts of the industry of having to enter something in one system and then turn and enter that same exact thing in another system, and so on and so on. And so if you achieve nothing but that, you'll make your people happier. Just some stats from the industry, and one of the great resources, JB Knowledge, they come out with a contact report every year. And I think it's telling to look at trends within that. So I pulled the 2018 report to see which was the most popular system, and it was other. So there wasn't really a market leader, although you can see that Procore among the single entity was gaining. And here 3 years later, Procore is by far the most popular one. I think they have good training, good ease of use, good interactivity with others, and really a good marketing department above all. But I'm not saying that Procore is the solution for everyone. It's clearly the solution for some. We use it in some capacities, but not in others. And you can see some of the other leading contenders there. Some other stats for you here. Asking again, that KPMG survey, what technology has the greatest potential to deliver impact to your business? PMIS was the leader, even more than BIM. These technology professionals, these construction professionals thought that PMIS was the single most important thing that they could adopt. But if you look at actual adoption, only 35% of engineering firms, only 27% of owners actually have put it into place. And then you've got a big chunk that are starting that journey. And so if you're considering your organization where you've maybe tried something and you're really just struggling and you think they're so far behind the curve, you're not. You're probably like most other firms or organizations out there who are trying it, who are doing the right thing, and you need to give it the time and the right process to get it right. Maybe you're part of that group that hasn't adopted it. Maybe you really haven't come around to emails or cell phones either. But I think the way that the industry is going, you can see the success that others have found within it. So just to wrap up the preamble here, the way to make this a success is to start small and to start smartly, to understand what is reasonable to achieve and let success build upon itself. My recommendation as a CM and an owner to those particular groups, owners should think about the kind of contracts that they write, because they have the greatest ability to decide what a project is going to be and how innovative a project is going to be by just putting sentences on a piece of paper. Your bidders will respond to whatever you want because you're paying them to do a job. And if you pay them to innovate, they absolutely will. But with how tight margins are these days, few and far between have the freedom to do that on their own. That said, you know, the CM professionals and contractors out there, it's a competitive advantage to say that you are the most efficient, the most progressive, can save money for the owner. So I think there's incentives for both parties there. So I'm going to speak for just a few minutes about an actual case study. This was a PMIS integration for a large healthcare organization I worked with. They were building a $400 million new facility in addition to their entire network of facilities. So on top of this single mega project, they had their normal 10-year master plan for facilities maintenance and upgrades. They were also in the middle of their lean journey, trying to get better as an organization. And they had a number of systems, and I'll name them here because I think it's illustrative to understand, if you work with any of these, how they might work. Their PMIS was eBuilder. Their internal finance team used Lawson. PDFs, they were some Adobe, some Bluebeam, but really just using that in a reading capacity. Design was in BIM 360, and then their asset management was in 40 So when we encountered their team, and we were part of this program management team, but also sort of helped the capital projects department, we discovered a few things: silos, paper, file storage, and technology. I'm going to get into each of these on their own here. And what we realized is this mega project was going to be just like a comet hitting them, and they were not ready because they had a way to barely keep up with what they're doing, and they were moving at a baby pace. but they have this mega project that was going to extremely tax all their systems, and we needed to make them move like an Olympic runner. And I think one of the earliest things that really hit home was we asked how much they processed on a normal month for invoices, and they told us, and we said, okay, your peak month of this project is going to be 20 times that amount. So how do you think you're going to be able to handle 20 times the volume and pay on time? So getting into these, each of the respective departments had their own systems, had their own silos, and they had meetings, they had coordination, but it was really this lack of integration between the systems, outdated processes, and double entry that made things move very slowly, even with a really great team. And across the board, we encountered people that were so dedicated to the mission who wanted to be innovative. But they were really stuck in the dark ages. When you think about healthcare organizations, you probably think about organizations that have to be very innovative to stay with the pace, but they were certainly on the medicine side, but not on the business side. One good example is if you had an invoice that you wanted them to pay, whether you were a medical billing provider or a contractor, you had to mail a hard copy to a PO box. Someone would take that, walk it across a highway to another building, and then someone would hand enter it. And we just said, there's got to be a better way. And so even though it wasn't within the charter of our program management team for that single project to reinvent the AP system for the organization, we realized that we had to do that if we wanted our project to be successful. Some other antiquated things, right? Wet ink on everything, and then paying over $100,000 a year just to store paper offsite. Same sort of thing with digital file storage. They were near capacity with their file storage. And through our investigations and discussions, we helped them realize that they as an organization were paying 3 different companies to scan and store records for them. So just, again, great departments, but no oversight trying to make them all more efficient. And technology, again, PDF readers and just giving people single small monitors was not setting their team up for success. So one of the easiest things we did initially was said, guys, it costs next to nothing. Let's just go get double monitors for everyone. And that overnight made people more efficient with no pushback. We didn't have to make a large case study, but we recognized a solution that would make everyone's lives better. And this is, PMIS aside, we were just trying to think about the big picture. But as we thought about the big picture, it took a lot of buy-in, a lot of selling, because think about how large a healthcare organization is and how hard it is to turn a cruise ship. It takes a lot of effort and a lot of time to make a small adjustment. So lots and lots of planning meetings, determining who in each department was going to champion this effort and be that accountable party when it came time for their part in this. We were realistic. We under-promised and over-delivered. We made sure that we didn't promise that it was going to be the best thing ever immediately. We let them know that this is going to take a while and it's going to take a lot of investment, but doing nothing is going to be even worse. And so creating that plan and understanding that we were still going to need to change on the fly as we went. A really helpful tool that we used in this as they were making their lean journey was the A3 form. And if anyone is familiar with lean, they may know this A3. It comes from Toyota. A3 is just the name of the size of paper. And it's a standard sheet that helps define all of the parameters for a potential new initiative. And it's a good way to force you to think through every single step of the implementation, how you will actually do it, why this should even be considered, what the process improvements will be, what the cost improvements will be. So just some snapshots here. We showed that, look at how many RFIs or POs you went through right now and what your average response time was. Now look at the projected volume increase and how much more time or how much slower you're going to be unless you make a change. So that really laid the foundation for things are going to get much, much worse unless we do something. And once we had them in that mindset of being receptive to a change, we explained how we thought the process could be simplified with these integrations, removing a number of steps, removing staff. And when it comes down to executives, right, nothing talks more than money. And so we said, if you do everything we talk about here, it will probably cost you $500,000. If you don't do any of this, you're going to hire 5 people and spend $650,000 over the life of this program. And we understand that what we're asking for is a big investment. It's still substantially better than what you're going to end up doing otherwise. And that's great. The VP of Finance said, we can't afford not to do this. We had our champion at the level we needed to get that investment. So that got us to yes, and that really started us on our process. So what we actually tried to achieve very first was taking eBuilder and Lawson and doing that integration. And the specific processes were the pay requisitions, the approvals, the revisions, and then the POs. And then during construction, all of our change orders, the payouts and invoices for other vendors. So really just a couple single streams, but those single streams took a lot of effort, took a lot of coordination between departments, took a lot of time, but paid a lot of dividends. So making that eBuilder Lawson integration, that API happen, was new to both firms. You ask them, hey, can you do this integration? Like, oh yeah, definitely. And then we say, great, tell us where you've done it before. And then say, well, okay, we got a couple people, we got a couple clients that are trying it right now. We don't actually have one that has worked. So we said, okay, great. We will be that first one to work for you. And it was not simple, but the institution was committed to it. And over the life of the project, it worked. So we made sure that as we built this in, we had ways to expand further processes and integrate other functions. We led from the top down to show that there was buy-in, there was support for this. And as we digitize, we knew that there would be disruptions. And so whenever you have a problem, think about if there's a way to solve that with a new tool. So if we think about the three key parts of the success, it's certainly a technology solution, but it's as much or more a process solution and a people solution. The tool is the easy part. The tool's out there waiting for you, but you should not touch that tool unless you have the right people and the right process to see it through. And so if I'm going to summarize this, understand the investment you want to make and understand that it is an investment, that there's an upfront cost before you see these returns. And starting small, starting with measurable wins, planning for change, and then find ways to track your results, evaluate, and I don't have it on here, but really celebrate these wins. Make a big deal out of these successes because they are a big deal to the organization. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing it. So with that, I will turn it over. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brian. That was great. Very informative and insightful slides. And as always, I enjoyed speaking and listening to your thoughts. For the audience, if anybody has any questions or they want to ask Brian some questions, please put them in the chat. Pam will read them over, and if they are needed, we can. If it's related to the discussion, we'll definitely ask it at the same time. Otherwise, we'll wait at the end of the meeting to go over those questions. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it.